Welcome, everyone. Before we dive in, tell me where you're listening from in the comments. If you love billionaire drama, hit like and subscribe. The hum of distant engines drifts through the luxury penthouse's floor-to-ceiling windows. Outside, Dubai's skyline glitters like a field of diamonds, but inside, all eyes are fixed on the polished marble floor. A single drone, bathed in the pink glow of sunset, descends silently through the grand atrium. Its rotors whisper quiet against the hushed crowd. At the center stands our protagonist, Elena Torres, heart pounding beneath her designer gown. She's accustomed to high society events, charity galas, art auctions, red carpet pronouncements. But tonight is different. Tonight, the host has remained anonymous, until this very moment. Elena's slender fingers tremble as the drone releases a small glass box, engraved with a golden crest she half recognizes. She steps forward, the crowd parting around her like the sea, and retrieves the box. A collective gasp rises. Inside rests an invitation, a hand-written card on heavy ivory stock, inked in deep midnight blue. Elena, your presence is requested at Blackwood Island by 4 a.m. tomorrow. Come alone. Elation and dread war within her. She knows Adrian Blackwood, the world's most reclusive billionaire, legendary for sealing deals with a handshake and vanishing into his private jet. Rumors swirl. He's ruthless, brilliant, a man who controls industries like a maestro conducts an orchestra. Yet beneath that steel facade, whispers say he's a dreamer, obsessed with beauty, with art, with impossible pursuits. Her best friend, Maya, slips an arm through hers, voice low. Are you insane? You can't just fly off to a secret island at 3 a.m. Elena glances at the crowd. CCTV cameras, reporters' lenses, society columnists scribbling notes by the dozen. It's Adrian Blackwood, she breathes. If I refuse, Maya's lips press together, you'll be blacklisted before sunrise. A pause. But if you go, her eyes sparkle. If you go, the world will watch. What would you do in Elena's shoes? Comment below. Elena's pulse races. The drone's tail light flickers like a strobing heart. The invitation glints in her hand, the crest 2 crossed falcons, burned into her memory from a childhood bedtime story of forbidden kingdoms. She looks skyward as the drone lifts away, the echo of its departure like a challenge. Will she accept? Tell me you're curious, Maya murmurs, voice low enough only Elena can hear. Tell me you're not terrified. A quarter moon sails high above. Below, Dubai's lights wink in hungry anticipation. Elena inhales, lifting her chin. I'm already on the plane, she says softly. The private yacht Elysium's embrace cuts through the moonlit expanse of the Arabian Gulf, its polished hull reflecting ripples of silver light. Docked at a secluded cove on Blackwood Island, the vessel looks less like a ship and more like a floating palace. Tiers of illuminated teak decks, waterfalls of cascading vines, and a helipad that hovers above a shimmering infinity pool. Lanterns carved from alabaster line the gangplank, each flickering with a violet flame, Blackwood's signature touch to evoke mystery. Elena steps onto the lower deck, her stilettos clicking against the deck's glossy surface. A soft breeze carries the scent of jasmine and sea salt. To her left, bartenders in crisp white blazers arrange crystal flutes of champagne atop a bar made entirely of carved ice. To her right, a string quartet plays a haunting violin melody, its notes drifting through towering glass doors into the main salon beyond. Inside the salon, ceilings soar 30 feet above, hung with 1,000 cascading crystals that catch the quartet's glow and split it into dancing fragments of light. Walls of smoked glass reveal panoramic views of the island's private rainforest, where bioluminescent flowers bloom beneath ancient banyan trees. Plush velvet sofas, deep emerald and sapphire, are arranged around low marble tables carved in the shape of interlocking falcons, echoing the Blackwood family crest. A hush falls over the small assembly of elite guests as Adrian Blackwood himself appears at the top of a sweeping onyx staircase. He is tall, impeccably dressed in a midnight blue tuxedo that seems to absorb surrounding light. His silver hair is combed back, revealing a chiseled jaw and a pair of stormy gray eyes that scan the crowd with quiet command. Every footstep he takes resonates on the marble steps, a measured countdown to his address. Elena's breath catches. Despite the opulence, tonight's energy vibrates with tension. No one has been officially invited, yet here they all are, from tech titans to royal dignitaries. Cameras flash in muted bursts, capturing every flick of Blackwood's silk bow tie, every careful gesture of his long-fingered hands. Adrian reaches the bottom step and raises a slender glass. "Welcome to Elysium's embrace," he says, his voice smooth as polished obsidian. "Tonight, we celebrate not just innovation but the power of human connection. Because sometimes," he pauses, letting the silence swell, "even the most untouchable among us needs someone to reach out, person to person." A ripple of applause breaks, but Elena senses an undercurrent of challenge in his tone. It isn't a toast to her. It feels like a summons. She drifts toward a mirrored alcove where attendants offer hors d'oeuvres, oysters topped with gold leaf, truffle-infused caviar spoons, and edible flowers that glow faintly under blacklight. Beside her, Maya sips a violet cocktail. "He's teasing you," Maya murmurs. "You and that invitation. Everyone's whispering, why her? What's the real reason he needed someone in person?" Elena lifts an oyster, hesitates, then lets it fall back onto the shell. The orchestra shifts into a new movement, urgent, lilting, and all eyes turn as a drone hovers through the glass ceiling, depositing a small lacquer box at Adrian's feet. Gasps of surprise echo across the room. Blackwood bends to retrieve it. He lifts the lid, revealing a single black envelope. He glances at the crowd, then at Elena, who stands rooted. He unseals the envelope, slides out a card, and in a voice that carries above the hushed chamber, reads, "Elena Torres, meet me at the Whispering Pavilion at dawn. There are truths that cannot cross oceans by drone." Murmurs swirl like a storm. Elena's pulse leaps. The Whispering Pavilion, a secluded structure of sandstone ruins half swallowed by vines, lies on the island's furthest shore, where waves crash like thunder. To get there, she will have to traverse dense jungle trails at first light. Adrian's eyes lock onto hers. For a heartbeat, time freezes. Chandeliers glow, lantern flames quiver, and the quartet's last note hangs in the air. Then he inclines his head, as if granting permission or issuing a challenge. Elena swallows. Heat floods her cheeks. The room seems to shrink, leaving only her and that enigmatic gaze. Maya's hand finds hers, warm, insistent. Elena Torres was born in a sun-baked town on Mexico's Pacific coast, where the ocean's song was more reliable than any alarm clock. She grew up in a two-room bungalow, its corrugated metal roof beaten by seasonal storms. Mornings began with the scent of corn tortillas frying on a simple cast iron comel. At night, her mother told tales of distant cities, of starlit rooftops and grand ballrooms, stories spun from memory and hope. From her father, a mechanic with grease always under his fingernails, Elena inherited a precise eye for detail. She watched him repair engines by ear. A faint rattle or hiss told him exactly which valve needed attention. In those garage hours, she learned that beauty could exist in broken things. He taught her to listen to hums and vibrations, to find music in malfunction. Her mother, a seamstress with nimble fingers and a penchant for bold patterns, introduced Elena to color. Together, they'd trace dress designs on old newspapers, stitch scraps of floral fabric into patchwork quilts, and experiment with embroidery under flickering kerosene lamps. Elena discovered how threads of rose pink and sunflower yellow could transform simple cloth into art. Those late-night sewing sessions lit a passion within her for design and creation. Despite scarce resources, Elena's childhood was rich in imagination. She collected sea glass from the shoreline, smoothing each shard against her palm until it shone like gemstone. She pressed wildflowers between pages of borrowed library books, marveling at how afternoon light turned petals translucent. When she closed her eyes, she could almost feel the salt-tanged breeze weaving through her hair. School was both sanctuary and crucible. Elena excelled in art and geometry, sketching architects' blueprints during class and painting watercolor sunsets at home. Yet classmates jeered at her patched dresses and mismatched pencils. She endured whispered jabs, "the mechanic's daughter," they'd say, until her best friend, Sophia, stood by her side. Sophia, whose family owned the local bakery, taught Elena that loyalty could be sweeter than any pastry. On Elena's 16th birthday, her parents surprised her with a used laptop, a battered device, but it was her portal to the wider world. She scoured online design forums, devouring tutorials on fashion illustration and interior decor. She watched virtual tour of palaces and yachts, sketching floor plans with the same zeal she once reserved for sea glass mosaics. In every ornate ceiling and gilded balustrade, she saw possibility. That summer, a regional art competition arrived in town. Elena entered with a mixed media piece, a model of her bungalow, its walls peeled back to reveal her family's story. Inside, miniature figures stitched from fabric and painted with watercolor stood beside a tiny drone crafted from aluminum foil. The judges admired its ingenuity. Her piece won first place. The prize was a scholarship to a design school in Guadalajara, a chance to leave behind cracked walls and whispered taunts. Leaving home felt like stepping into a dream. Elena kissed her parents goodbye at dawn, the horizon painted pink, orange, and gold. She clutched her portfolio, a leather satchel bursting with sketches of floating villas, hanging gardens, and elegant silhouettes. On the bus to the city, she pored over every crease in her drawings, imagining each line brought to life by candlelight or crystal reflections. In Guadalajara, Elena discovered a world both intoxicating and cruel. The Design Academy's halls were lined with marble floors and polished arches, the foyer lit by a crystalline chandelier that rivaled any she'd sketched. Yet students there spoke in hushed tones about lineage and connections. Talent wasn't enough, pedigree counted for more. Her classmates arrived in luxury cars, their parents' logos embroidered on sleek jackets. Elena felt the old sting of being an outsider. Her first assignment was to design a gala setting for a fictitious billionaire's anniversary. While others sketched operatic venues or foreign castles, Elena proposed a floating pavilion tethered to a private island, its walls woven from living vines and illuminated by bioluminescent lanterns. The instructor, a renowned architect with white hair and a piercing gaze, paused over her rendering. "Where did you get this vision?" he asked. Elena's lip trembled. "From home," she whispered. That design won the top prize and the attention of a visiting patron from Dubai. He offered her an internship at his firm, which specialized in luxury resorts. Within months, Elena found herself on a private jet, soaring above endless desert dunes toward a city where gold glimmered on every facade. Nights she spent drafting resort layouts under fluorescent lights. Days she attended meetings in glass towers that pierced the sky. She learned quickly that billionaire clients demanded perfection. At her first solo presentation, she laid out plans for an underwater suite beneath a marine research facility. The client, a steel-faced Russian oligarch, took one look and dismissed it as child's play. Elena's cheeks burned, but at dinner that night, she sketched again, transforming the concept into a floating observatory held aloft by drone-lifted platforms. The following morning, the client signed off with a rare smile. Success bloomed, but so did complications. A rival firm accused her team of design plagiarism. Social media buzzed with rumors of a young upstart stepping on toes. Elena's mentors counseled silence. Let results speak for you. Yet sleepless nights spent recalibrating floor plans and restructuring renderings frayed her nerves. She learned the hard truth. In billionaire circles, reputations could be shattered by a single scandal. During one particularly grueling project, a palace remodel for a Middle Eastern royal, Elena discovered that the prince's sister had been forced into an unwanted marriage. As she designed a private sanctuary within the palace, she slipped symbolic elements into her renderings. Hidden alcoves for whispered confidences, safe passages to a secret garden, and a drone-operated service system to bypass prying eyes. The sister wept when she saw the plans, and Elena realized design could protect as well as enthrall. Still, fame carried isolation. After gala previews and ribbon cuttings, Elena often returned to her apartment, an angular loft in a high rise where silence echoed off bare walls. Despite winning awards and earning glowing headlines, visionary architect transforms desert skyline. She longed for the warmth of family dinners and the laughter of childhood friends. Her parents were proud, but oceans away. Even Sophia's birthday calls crackled with nostalgia. She couldn't reciprocate. Then came the invitation. A drone-delivered glass box bearing a loan card from Adrian Blackwood, billionaire magnate and mystery among billionaires. On the card, his script read, "I need to see you in person." Elena stared at the card as if it were a riddle. Why her? What could this man, who commanded industries from steel to satellites, want from an architect whose greatest claim to fame was a floating jungle pavilion? Elena returned to her desk that night, lighting a single candle and drafting a schematic of the Whispering Pavilion, a ruin rebuilt into a hall of echoes, where each voice lingered among stone pillars draped in orchids. She wondered if the pavilion's purpose was purely aesthetic, or if it hid a deeper design, a trap, a sanctuary, or a confession chamber. She packed her bag at dawn, folding her sketches like talismans. As the jet's engines roared to life, she pressed her palm against the invitation, feeling the weight of possibility and peril. She crossed half the world for boardroom showdowns and palace unveilings, but this journey felt unlike any other. Mid-story hook. What would you do in Elena's shoes? Trust the invitation of a notoriously private billionaire, or turn back before the door even opens? Comment below. Dawn's first pale fingers pried open the horizon as Elena's seaplane descended toward Blackwood Island. The whisper of its floats upon the water was the only sound breaking the pre-dawn stillness, and as the aircraft taxied to a small floating dock, Elena's pulse thundered in her ears. Clutching the glass-encased invitation, its edges kissed by dew, she stepped onto the slick wooden planks, fog curling around her ankles like spectral fingers. Behind her, the seaplane's pilot gave a curt nod before slipping away in the mist. Elena stood alone with the island's hush, the only witness to the invitation's single command. "Meet me at the Whispering Pavilion at dawn. There are truths that cannot cross oceans by drone." She tucked the card safely into her coat pocket, its ink still faintly warm. Ahead, a narrow stone path snaked into the jungle, its weathered cobblestones slick with moss. Vines dripped with dew, beating like drops of light in the low sun. The air carried the perfume of orchids and damp earth, and somewhere a distant waterfall roared like hidden thunder. Each step felt like trespass into another world, one where power and secrecy intertwined beneath the canopy. Elena's stilettos, exchanged for sturdy boots at Maya's urging, crunched on gravel. Her senses sharpened. Frogs croaking amidst fallen leaves, parrots, distant screeches, the click of cicadas rising to a frenetic pitch. Sunlight fractured through the trees, illuminating motes of mist that danced around her like fireflies. Halfway along the trail, she paused at a rusted iron gate fashioned in the shape of two intertwined falcons. Its latch gave way with a groan, as though begrudging her passage. Beyond lay a stone courtyard strewn with fallen petals, lavender and white, designed to resemble an ancient amphitheater. At its center, a marble fountain carved into the likeness of a winged woman stood dry, her stone eyes seeming to watch Elena's every move. Her heart fluttered. Every detail felt orchestrated, as if the island itself waited for her arrival. She closed her eyes, imagining past visitors, tycoons stepping from helicopters, celebrities in jeweled gowns, all here for Adrian Blackwood's allure. But none arrived by mist-shrouded cove at dawn, with only an invitation and curiosity as their guide. Elena resumed her journey, the courtyard behind her swallowed by the advancing foliage. As the jungle thickened, the path narrowed and rose. Roots entwined with stone, and she used her free hand to steady herself against gnarled trunks. Branches brushed her cheeks, leaving damp streaks. Somewhere ahead, she heard Adrian's voice cascading on a loop through hidden speakers, reciting fragments of poetry about truth and vulnerability. The effect was uncanny, as if he walked alongside her in the undergrowth. Finally, the trail leveled out onto a wild glade where the Whispering Pavilion emerged. It was a ruin reborn, sandstone columns half restored, entwined with wisteria vines that tumbled like lavender waterfalls. Between columns, gauzy curtains of spider silk fluttered in the breeze, carrying the soft murmur of hidden speakers. Designs in the marble floor formed concentric circles, reminiscent of ripples in water, and at the center lay a polished obsidian table, its surface reflecting the dawn's first rays. Elena's breath hitched when she spotted him. Adrian Blackwood stood beside the table, dressed in a tailored charcoal gray suit that molded to his lithe frame. His storm gray eyes found hers instantly, and for a moment, the world contracted to the space between them. He held a single white orchid, its petals unfurling like a promise. "Good morning, Elena," he said, voice low and resonant. The words felt like silk brushing against her skin. She swallowed. "Good morning, Mr. Blackwood." He gestured to the obsidian table. "Please sit." When she hesitated, he smiled, small, disarming. "No theatrics, no audience, just you and me." She stepped forward, her boots clicking on the marble. The pavilion's acoustics caught every footstep, magnifying it in the hush. She looked around. No cameras, no staff, no servants, only Adrian and this secluded sanctuary. He folded back the curtains of mosquito netting and motioned to a low stool crafted from driftwood and inlaid with mother-of-pearl. Elena lowered herself, the orchid resting in her lap as a white-hot pulse bloomed in her chest. Adrian circled the table and placed a leather-bound notebook before her. Its cover bore her initials, E.T., embossed in gold. "I've read every article about you," he said. "Seen every sketch you've posted online. But I wanted to understand you, not the rumors." He paused. "So I invited you here." She opened the notebook. Inside were sketches. The whispering pavilion as it once stood centuries ago, a grand temple of secrets. Then his own renderings of its restoration, blending ruin and rebirth. Each margin held his annotations in precise script. Light here to capture morning fog, echo chamber for whispered confessions, secluded alcove for honest dialogue. Elena's fingers traced the lines. "You built this," she began. "Partly," he interrupted gently. "This island is my laboratory for ideas that defy convention. I needed someone who could see beyond my blueprints." He met her gaze. Someone who understood design as storytelling. A tremor of recognition stirred within her. He hadn't summoned her merely for glamour or spectacle. He sought her vision, her ability to imbue spaces with soul. She looked up. "Why the drone invitation? Why not call or send a video?" Adrian studied her. "Because some messages lose their meaning when they cross screens. I wanted you to feel the island beneath your feet, hear its whispers, see its dawn. I wanted you present, not just another face on a Zoom grid." The sun's rays climbed higher, filtering through the pavilion's columns and igniting the obsidian table in flickers of light. Elena inhaled, the jungle's breath mingling with her own. She closed the notebook with a soft click. "I'm here," she said, voice steady despite the thrumming in her veins. Adrian's lips curved in a slow smile. "Good. Because the real invitation begins now." He reached into his jacket pocket and withdrew a single key, a delicate thing of silver and onyx. He placed it on the table. "This key opens the vault beneath the pavilion," he explained. "Inside, you'll find the prototype for my latest project. The Aeolia Tower, a concept for a floating observatory sculpted entirely by drones. It's imperfect, but I believe you can challenge me, refine it, make it sing." Elena's breath caught. This was more than a commission. It was an admission of creative vulnerability from a man who trusted no one. "What's the catch?" she asked, lifting the key. His gaze darkened with inscrutable intent. "No catch," he said. "Just collaboration. But if you refuse, you'll forfeit the key and with it, the chance to leave a mark on an empire." The words settled like stones in her mind. A project of this scale could define her career or destroy it. She glanced at the silver key, then into his expectant eyes. Maya's voice echoed in her memory. "Trust is the greatest risk." Elena laid one hand on the key and breathed deep. "Show me the vault." He inclined his head. "Follow me." They rose together, footsteps resonating in the hushed pavilion, and stepped toward the hidden hatch beneath the obsidian table, toward the heart of Adrian Blackwood's grandest gamble. Elena's boots echoed down the dimly lit stairwell as Adrian led her beneath the pavilion. The hatch slammed shut above, sealing out dawn's glow and the world beyond. A single filament bulb hummed to life, revealing a vaulted chamber lined with polished steel and glass canisters. Each vial held humming drone components, rotors, microprocessors, sensor arrays, like butterflies pinned behind transparent wings. Her pulse thundered in her ears. Until moments ago, she'd stood beneath sky and stone. Now she was 6 feet underground in the billionaire's private workshop. The air smelled of ozone and polished metal. Adrian's silhouette moved beside her, lit by the soft glow of instrument panels. She swallowed, voice catching. I didn't expect this. He paused by a long workbench cluttered with prototype sketches and half-assembled drone frames. Most don't, he replied, tone flat. Shock is a good way to reset assumptions. His storm gray eyes studied her face. How do you feel? Elena touched her throat, smoothing her collar. The weight of secrecy pressed against her chest. Vulnerable, she admitted, but curious, he nodded. Good, curiosity leads to breakthroughs. He picked up a tiny rotor blade and held it between 2 gloved fingers. This is the propeller I designed for the Eolia Tower project. It's efficient, but it creates turbulence in high altitudes. He placed it in her hand. What would you change? She examined the blade's curve, imagining airflow around its edges. Memories of her father's engine repairs flickered in her mind, the way he'd listen for the subtlest rasp before tightening a bolt. The pitch is too aggressive, she said. If you smooth this transition and taper the trailing edge by a millimeter, you'll reduce drag. Adrian's lips curved. Exactly. He returned the blade and beckoned her toward a central console. A holographic model of the Eolia Tower spun above it, a slender, spiraling column of glass and steel, ringed by drone platforms. Engines hummed in simulation, lifting miniature observation pods skyward. Elena circled the projection, fingertips grazing its orb. It's breathtaking, she whispered, but it feels static. It needs organic movement, like vines spiraling upward, not rigid tiers. She tapped a gesture, and the hologram shifted. Slender, twisting helixes of green-tinged glass wove around the tower's core, drones nesting like hummingbirds. He watched her with a quiet intensity. This is why I brought you here, he said. I needed someone to breathe life into steel. Her heart fluttered, pride mingled with panic. This was more than a job. It was the raw essence of her talent displayed before the world's most powerful man. What if her ideas fell flat in this sanctum of innovation? Adrian led her to an observation window recessed into the chamber's far wall. Through bulletproof glass, dawn's first light filtered through the jungle canopy far above. Mist rolled between treetops, and the pyramid-shaped roof of the whispering pavilion peeked through vines like a sentinel. Out there, he said, voice softer now, is a world of expectations, but down here nothing matters except creation. He placed a hand over hers on the glass. Heat pulsed beneath his glove. Tell me your doubts. Elena's breath hitched. She turned, gazing at the workshop's gleaming surfaces. I'm afraid, she confessed. Afraid that my designs will never match the grandeur of this place, that I'm just the mechanic's daughter playing architect in a billionaire's toy box. He studied her silently, then gently nudged her shoulder. Your past doesn't define your future. Every masterpiece begins with a rough sketch. He withdrew a leather-bound portfolio from a steel locker and slid it toward her. These are my first drafts, crude, unpolished. I almost scrapped them, but I held on to them, hoping someone would refine my vision. Elena opened the portfolio. The pages were filled with fragmented ideas, a floating concert hall held aloft by drone arrays, a spherical greenhouse drifting above glaciers, a lattice work tower that collapsed in simulations. Each diagram was more fantastical than the last, but all abandoned. Tears burned in her eyes. You kept them, he nodded. I never stopped believing in the impossible. His gaze softened. I brought you here not just for your skill, but for your courage to challenge my failures. She closed the portfolio, voice trembling with new resolve. Then let's make it real. He offered a nod, then beckoned her deeper into the lab. At the far end stood a massive vault door, icy steel etched with intricate patterns of falcons and ivy. Inside is the Eolia prototype, he said. But first, I want to hear your plan. How will you transform these blueprints into something that resonates with human emotion? Elena drew in a steadying breath. Warmth spread from her chest, ignited by purpose more than fear. We start with narrative, she said. Design the tower as a story in 3 acts: birth, ascent, and revelation. Each drone platform symbolizes a chapter, an invitation to exploration. She sketched in the air, weaving motion into her words. Adrian listened, expression inscrutable. When she finished, he remained silent for a long moment, as if weighing her very soul. Then, with deliberate calm, he pressed a hidden release. The vault door ground open, revealing a dimly lit chamber beyond. Inside, half-built models of the Aeolia Tower perched on work tables, some gleaming like crystals, others warped and twisted. Overhead rigs hung lattices of cables and drone arms. The prototype tower lay in pieces, an unfinished dream yearning for unity. Elena stepped closer, breath shallow. This was the heart of his vision, laid bare in metal and glass. She reached out to touch a fragment of a window panel etched with swirling runes. The pattern felt familiar, like a fingerprint of emotion. Adrian's voice broke the reverie. "Will you do it?" She looked up at him, determination bright in her eyes. "Yes, I will," he nodded once sharply. "Then let the real work begin." They stood side by side in the vault's hush, the chamber's shadows stretching long as truths and fears converged. Elena felt the weight of expectation, but also the thrill of possibility. Here, beneath stone and steel, she would either forge a masterpiece or shatter beneath its demands. Mid-story hook. What would you do if you were Elena? Embrace the challenge and risk everything, or walk away before the vault's secrets consume you? Comment below. Elena's first full day in Blackwood's subterranean atelier had blurred into a nocturnal meditation of blueprints and humming machinery. When she awoke at dawn, the island was shrouded in a pale mist that clung to the palm fronds like gauzy veils. She dressed swiftly in slim black slacks and a crisp white blouse, practical enough for sketching in the field, elegant enough for a billionaire's scrutiny. Down a carved sandstone corridor, she followed lantern-lit torches to the whispering pavilion overlook, where Adrian Blackwood waited. But he wasn't alone. Behind him stood a second figure, a woman in a tailored charcoal gray suit whose dark hair was pulled into a severe chignon. Her posture was rigid, gaze cool. "Elena," Adrian said, voice resonant against the stone walls. "This is Vivienne Frost, my chief of operations." Vivienne offered a curt nod. "Welcome back. I trust our facilities met your expectations." Her tone was polite, but her eyes, pale steel, assessed Elena with the precision of a surgeon. Elena swallowed, recalling her own admission of vulnerability in the vault. "The workshop is incredible. I've never seen anything like it." Vivienne's lips curved, just barely, before she turned and strode away down the walkway. "Breakfast will be served in the main pavilion at 8. Please don't be late." Adrian watched Vivienne's retreating figure disappear into the jungle shadows. Then he turned back to Elena, a crease of concern between his brows. "I apologize for her abruptness. Vivienne has her duties, and mine require utmost discretion." Elena nodded. "I understand." Her fingers brushed the leather portfolio strapped at her side. "But I thought this collaboration would be more between us." He exhaled, shoulders folding. "It is, yet any project on this scale demands operational oversight." He paused, then smiled wryly. "Consider her the gatekeeper to my world." The words hung between them as they climbed the steps to the main pavilion, a structure of pale marble columns draped in jasmine vines. Sunlight fractured across mosaic floors of emerald and sapphire, forming patterns that pulsed like living cells. Servants in charcoal livery moved with silent precision, laying out steaming platters of French pastries, fresh mango slices, and urns of jasmine tea. Elena hesitated at the threshold. Vivienne appeared at the far end of the pavilion, overseeing the arrangement of 100 place settings, each plate etched with the Blackwood crest. When Vivienne's gaze flicked to Elena, she lifted an eyebrow before returning to her task. Adrian guided Elena to a secluded table carved into the marble floor. He poured tea from a porcelain pot painted with rippling waves. "You look uneasy," he observed. She stirred a sugar cube, eyes on the swirling steam. "I'm not used to such layers of control. Back home, projects were mine, no committees, no boardrooms. Just me, sketches, and deadlines. He leaned forward, voice low. And sometimes the stakes here aren't merely deadlines. Investors, governments, press, my ventures shape markets. Vivienne ensures the machine runs smoothly. He set his cup down gently. But for this project, I want your voice to carry weight equal to mine. Before Elena could respond, drums began to echo through the pavilion, deep, resonant strikes that vibrated through the marble. Vivienne rose, sashing toward a raised dais at the pavilion's center. Servants parted to reveal a circular platform, its edge inset with cobalt glass. Adrian's expression sharpened. It seems we have a surprise. He stood, straightening his suit jacket, and motioned for Elena to follow. On the platform, a small crowd of impeccably dressed guests had gathered. Investors in sharp suits, tech journalists with notepads, and a handful of international architects. None had arrived on the invitation Elena received. They'd come by helicopter, their curiosity piqued by rumors of Blackwood's new venture. Vivienne tapped a slender baton against a crystal podium. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, voice clear as a bell, "thank you for joining us on Blackwood Island this morning. As you know, Mr. Blackwood has invited an exceptional architect, Miss Elena Torres, to collaborate on the Eolia Tower. Today, she will reveal her initial concept drawings." A ripple of polite applause. Elena's heart hammered. The collaboration she'd envisioned as one-to-one had become a staged revelation before a panel of power brokers. Adrian placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Go on." His storm-gray eyes met hers, conveying trust and expectation. Elena stepped onto the platform, portfolio clutched in one hand and stylus in the other. Vivienne withdrew, revealing a large easel draped in velvet. Elena swept the cloth away, unveiling a monumental rendering. The Eolia Tower entwined with living vines, drone platforms shaped like petals unfurling at dawn, windows of prismatic glass that rotated to catch sunlight. A hush fell. She began to speak. "Inspired by my childhood on Mexico's Pacific coast, I envision the Eolia Tower as a living structure, an organism that breathes with the sky. Each platform represents a bloom, opening and closing as drones deliver observation pods to explorers." Murmurs rippled through the crowd, some awed, some skeptical. A suited man with a graying mustache whispered to his neighbor. A journalist raised a pen. Elena swallowed, steadying her voice. "The drones themselves will be not just functional, but artistic, sculpted to resemble hummingbirds in flight, their wings iridescent. At night, soft bioluminescent panels will glow along the tower's spine, transforming it into a beacon of human ingenuity." Lights dimmed over the drawing, and a spotlight illuminated the tower's crown, where a translucent dome hovered above a network of drone nests. "This crown," Elena continued, "is the Aeolian Observatory, where scientists can gather to study climate from above the clouds. And for those who seek inspiration, it is a reminder that beauty and purpose can coexist." The investors leaned forward, murmured among themselves. Adrian observed, a faint smile playing at his lips. Elena realized that Vivienne had provided not only logistical oversight, but curated this moment of unveiling, an entry into Blackwood's world where spectacle met strategy. When she finished, a hush lingered before applause rippled through the pavilion. Adrian stepped forward to join her, his presence amplifying the moment. "This is only the beginning," he said, voice clear. "With Elena's vision, we will redefine what's possible." As flutes of champagne were passed, Elena felt both exhilaration and disquiet. Vivienne caught her eye from across the room, her expression unreadable. Had Elena impressed? Or merely survived the test? Adrian leaned close. "Today you showed them your voice. Tomorrow they'll expect a masterpiece." Elena's fingers tightened around her stylus. The path forward glittered with promise and peril. In the world of billionaires, brilliance and risk danced together, and she had just stepped onto the stage. That evening, Elena returned to the island's central plaza where torches flickered against sandstone walls. Vivienne Frost joined her at a marble bench, eyes narrowed. "Tomorrow you'll brief the board of directors," Vivienne said crisply. "They expect progress." Elena's chest tightened. In the vault, she and Adrian had sketched revolutionary drone-driven facades, but Vivienne's reminder felt like a guillotine's blade. She nodded, though doubt churned within her. As she walked away, she spotted reporters staking out the pavilion entrance, their lenses trained like hawks. Word of the Eolia Tower was already leaking. Back in her cabin, Elena found Adrian waiting by the window, the moon's reflection rippling on the sea. "They'll challenge every detail," he warned. "Stand your ground." She met his gaze, resolve flickering bright. "I will." Before sunrise, Adrian invited Elena for a walk through the island's hidden orchid gardens. Dew-laden blooms curved toward her path, petals glowing pale as lanterns. Each flower seemed to whisper encouragement. He handed her a cup of jasmine tea. "You did well yesterday." His tone was gentle, almost vulnerable. Elena tasted honey on his words. They paused at a vine-draped gazebo where Adrian produced a small sketchbook. Inside were doodles of Elena's childhood sea-glass mosaics, recreated in glass panels for the tower's lobby. "I wanted you to know I'm listening," he said softly. Elena's heart fluttered. In that quiet moment, ambition and attraction intertwined. The steam from their cups curled between them like a promise. News of Elena's breakthrough spread faster than wildfire. At the gala unveiling of her revised model, she posed beside Adrian under crystal chandeliers until a familiar figure emerged from the shadows. It was Diego Alvarez, her ex-fiancé and former business partner. His tailored suit hugged his frame, his smirk taut with rivalry. "Well, well," he drawled. "Architect of dreams or just a drone-obsessed ingenue?" Murmurs rippled. Elena's cheeks warmed, memories of broken promises stung anew. Diego's firm had once backed her first major project, then pulled funding when she refused his advances. Now he stood before her, a threat masquerading as charm. Adrian's hand tightened on her elbow. "Diego," he said coolly, "this is Elena. Perhaps you'll stay for the presentation." Diego bowed theatrically. "Only to see if your designs fly higher than your reputation." Elena steadied her voice. "Watch closely." The next day's press conference crackled with tension. A stage draped in obsidian panels bore Elena's new holographic renderings. Cameras whirred as Diego strode to the podium. He unveiled doctored schematics, alleging Elena plagiarized a competitor's drone-lifted pavilion. Journalists murmured. Sophie, Elena's friend hidden among the crowd, sent an encouraging wave. Elena took the stand, heart pounding. She projected her original concept files, time-stamped designs, personal notes on airflow dynamics, and her father's handwritten sketches. The room fell silent as proof flooded the screen. Adrian joined her, placing a steadying hand on her back. "Truth," he said, "always prevails." Diego's smug facade cracked. Reporters shifted allegiance. Elena exhaled, vindication shining in her eyes. Under a vaulted dome in the main pavilion, investors gathered in concentric rows. Elena stepped forward, offering her final presentation. A multimedia journey tracing Eolia Tower from dawn's mist to starlit heights. As she spoke, the dome's panels transformed, simulating sunrise's blaze. Investors gasped at the vibrancy. Adrian watched from the back, pride softening his features. At the climax, Elena revealed a personal dedication. A glass mosaic of her family's bungalow at the tower's base, honoring her roots. Tears glistened in the crowd as the president of the investment board rose, applause swelling. "You've not only built a tower," he said, voice thick, "but bridged worlds, heart and steel." Adrian crossed to her, pressing a single rose into her hand. "You've made it sing." 6 months later, the Eolia Tower soars above the skyline, a spiraling marvel of glass and drone platforms. Tourists gasp, scientists publish studies from its crown. Elena's name graces every headline. Back on Blackwood Island, she inaugurates the Torres Foundation, a charity offering design scholarships to underprivileged youths. Adrian stands beside her as students unveil their own drone-driven models. She catches his gaze, gratitude mingling with affection. He lifts a champagne flute. "To new beginnings," he toasts. Students cheer, cameras flash, and Elena realizes that her journey has come full circle, from a humble bungalow to the heights of innovation and compassion. "What inspired you most about Elena's journey?" Comment below, hit like, and subscribe for our next billionaire love friction saga. Thank you for joining Elena and Adrian's emotional roller coaster. If you loved the twists, hit that like button and share your favorite moment. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell. Our next tale of opulence, passion, and intrigue is just around the corner. Until then, keep dreaming big. Because sometimes, the invitation you least expect leads to the adventure of a lifetime.